Hey up lads and lasses, Fletch here from Ultimate Halo, and 343 Industries at the moment have the worst habit of doing updates and videos when I go to sleep. So we're a bit later on in the day for this one, but hopefully I can give some of my thoughts and insight onto this news. If you want to see the original video that they posted on their YouTube channel, link is in the description. You are probably best watching that for the exact full details, but I shall be trying to elaborate on my opinions and thoughts from there. So sit back, relax and enjoy.
Ultimate Halo.
So I do want to just cover over a key thing, which is the grapple shot. Now, there seems to be lots of possibilities with this, and I've kind of touched on it in previous videos that I've made, and I also spent far too long making this thumbnail, which you can see on screen. Although I do think the ability to be able to grapple shot to a Banshee or any moving vehicle for that matter is pretty incredible, to then be able to hijack it. Initially, when I heard of the idea, I thought it might make hijacking just that little bit too easy, but when it comes down to it, 343 seem to have the stance that it does take skill and timing, and I imagine that the grapple shot isn't an infinite distance away to grapple, no pun intended. So in other words, you don't have a limitless thread of wire to grapple to other things. You can only do things within a certain range of yourself. So maybe that might give aerial vehicles some chance on the battleground. I still think it would be cool, and I'm sure in montages or just clips are very popular at the moment. I'm sure that will look great, not only to Halo fans, but for those looking to get into the franchise and seeing them doing these crazy wild things. Another thing announced was that you can use the grapple shot to get weapons to come towards you. Now, we have already seen on the gameplay trailer that you can bring fusion coils to yourself and then throw them, and the exact same principle applies, but I don't think it will necessarily be that easy. It does depend if you're on controller, mouse and keyboard. I imagine something like that is a lot easier on mouse and keyboard as opposed to controller, especially depending on what your controller layout is for Halo Infinite. But I think for those people who are a bit concerned about grapple hooking something in multiplayer, such as a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher, I think they need to remember that the grapple shot is not something that will be a base item. Now, it's going to be an equipment pickup, much like Halo 3, and we've already seen that in this screenshot that 343 released in December. So you've actually got to go pick up the grapple shot before you can even get to the power weapons, and if both of those items spawn at the start of the match, you've got to choose between one or the other. So the likelihood is one is gone before the other already arrives. So that's just worth bearing in mind, just for those who are a little bit concerned in that regard. And that kind of segues onto weapons. Now, Quindale Hoyo and Unishek, they talk a little bit about the sandbox. That's Quindale Hoyo's role. He looks after the sandbox, and he's one of the leads on that. So it sounds like from what he's trying to say is that there will be no major meta changes. They're trying to get everything so that everything's fine-tuned along the way. They want the BR to feel like the battle rifle. They want the assault rifle, the shotguns, everything to fit in their specific designated roles. So later down the line, everything's not crazy cranked, and it seems like they'll have had more time, especially with this delay, to really fine-tune the game and its sandbox. Now, they were questioned a little bit on the new shotgun. Now, it's quite quick fire compared to the classic shotgun, and they alluded to that maybe it's a possibility that the other weapon does exist in the game and that it serves its own purpose because it is a lot more powerful, it fires a lot slower. So really the classic shotgun is potentially there, and later down the line they were asked a little bit about the classic Halo Magnum. Now, it doesn't sound like they were talking about whether that's going to be in the game or not, but the vibe we got was it's not going to be a thing, which is understandable because I think they wanted to get away from what Halo 5 did and Halo CE did, in that the Magnum is a very prevalent weapon and it's actual a precision weapon, whereas really it should be a sidekick, hence the new name for the Magnum in Halo Infinite. Just a little segue, if you're not already subscribed, Ultimate Halo is on the grind to 100,000 subscribers, so if you love Halo Infinite and updates along those lines, feel free to click that button down below. You will not be disappointed. But Legacy does seem to be a focus. I think they want to really concentrate on what weapons they can bring into the game that fans recognise, but also bring in a new flavour, so everything will serve a purpose and everything seems to be categorised. There is kinetic weapons, plasma, and sort of rolling into that, one of the next things they talk about is plasma weapons in Halo Infinite. Now, it sounds like there are going to be two different types, much like in previous Halo games, but they're going to refine how how they both behave a little bit more. So red plasma weapons are going to overheat a little bit more. This is because they actually seem to deal more damage potentially, and because they are a lot hotter, whereas blue plasma tends to be colder. This is kind of how it is in the classic Halo games with the red brute plasma rifle, which does overheat quicker and it is a lot more powerful, and the blue one is a lot more durable, I would say, in the long run. And plasma spread is also another topic of discussion. So with the plasma repeater, not the plasma repeater, what's its name? Okay, I just had to Google it. It's the Ravager. So with the Ravager, it's a burst fire weapon, but that doesn't stop it from having its own unique abilities. It's not like the battle rifle, but more powerful. This thing spreads bullets because it's a projectile type weapon. So if you drag your weapon across the screen whilst you're firing, it's going to spread that damage over a larger surface area. So it's not going to be as powerful and concentrated if you aim in the same position and fire it. If I was stood and I was a Spartan, you fired whilst I was in the same position, it'd probably kill me, I imagine. But if you're spreading across the screen, I'm not going to get the brunt of all of that damage, so it's going to be less effective. But it depends what ultimately your goal is. If you're in a group scenario and there's 3 Spartans in front of you, you could potentially wipe all of their shields and somebody else pick them off. And that's a really interesting mechanic that could change up the sandbox for this type of weapon. Just a few other key things: weapons losing vehicle parts. Now we did see it was very subtle, you can't really see it fully, but Duquesne23 pointed this out quite some time ago and I was impressed that I even saw it, and it's that wheels and other parts of vehicles can fall off, and there is a new damage system to how vehicles work in the game. Now they haven't elaborated fully, but I imagine it could be something like an air vehicle. You imagine like a Falcon, one of the spinny things, what do you call the spinny things? Propellers, one of the propellers that could fall off. So maybe you could be hanging directionally, just being held in the air, just barely by one of the propellers. That could be one of the principles, or maybe like a real air life plane landing kind of thing, who knows. But that would be a really interesting dynamic way, and that would actually be a crucial way for you to then have accuracy and decide where you want to place your bullets into a vehicle to disable it. Grenades, we've also learned that they have different impacts. So one of the different impacts is the spike grenade. Now physically they discussed they have spikes on top of them. This can actually kill an enemy if they're very weak with health. Now I think that's really cool. I think they're really thinking deep into, okay, we've got all these ideas, and they were never fully implemented into the gameplay despite their being designed in that way. So I really appreciate the thought and the time they've put into every single weapon and utility this game has to offer, and especially from classic legacy stuff, and improving that and adding to it how we think we should have it, if that makes any sense at all. We've already seen frag and plasma grenades. They're pretty much standard as we would expect them. We wouldn't really need them to change, but we've also seen the electric grenade, which seems to stun enemies, really lock them into place, and potentially it might slow down a Spartan in multiplayer. So overall, I would say that the sandbox is looking really promising. I've been pretty confident for a while that the gameplay trailer we saw last year at E3 was just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot more that's going on behind the scenes, what we haven't seen, and there's a whole wealth of weapons we haven't even seen yet. We saw a very small fraction of what we would normally see. So hopefully that gives us all a little bit of insight. I want you guys to let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think? Do you have any particular favourite weapons or additions? Let me know. Once again, my name is Jack Fletcher, and I will see you next time on the one and the only Ultimate Halo.
Subscribe now to Ultimate Halo for more unfriggin' believable Halo content.